Hey guys, Jake Carlson here, host of the Modern Leadership Podcast. Are you ready to focus on amplifying your leadership superpowers? Let's go! Welcome, my friends and fellow elite achievers, to the Modern Leadership Podcast. It is so good to be with you again. As many of you know, I live just outside of Phoenix, and I keep hearing this commercial on the radio saying, "You wouldn't buy a house without looking inside first, would you? That'd be crazy." And I have to laugh because we did just that. We bought our house through FaceTime while living in the UK, and not ideal. We had little choice. Thankfully, it all worked out. We love our house, the schools, the location, but I have to admit, not all of my home purchases have worked out this well. When it comes to real estate, I am far from an expert, and that is why I'm so excited for you to meet this week's guest expert, Mark Podolsky, also known as the Land Geek. Mark is widely considered the country's most trusted and foremost authority on buying and selling raw and undeveloped land within the United States. He's been actively investing in real estate since 2001 and has completed over 5,000 unique transactions. This level of success is largely due to his core business philosophy and one that translates to all business industries: happy customers guaranteed. Mark is a fellow podcaster and host of one of the top-rated investment shows, The Best Passive Income Model and The Art of Passive Income. Mark, it is so great to have you with us today. How goes it?
Jake Carlson, I'm thrilled to be here. My pulse is normal. My respiration's fine. Just drank the bulletproof coffee. I'm ready to go. I'm highly caffeinated.
Well, and I love that, as we were talking in the pre-interview, you've got your treadmill going there. And I love the energy that you bring to these podcasts because you're up and you're moving and you got things going on. You are doing a ton. And before we jump into all that, we got to get a little background of what we missed in the intro by way of family, hobbies, or personal interests.
Sure. So, I've got 3 kids. I've got 2 boys and a girl, 16, 14, and 12. I've been married 20 years. And my hobbies are basically, working out, meditating, business. I don't golf. And it's pretty much my kids' world, and I'm just living in it.
Well, that's fantastic. And I understand you live in Phoenix as well.
I do.
And so we're neighbors, but we're recording this over, our Skype interview. So just up the street, my friend Mark, who doesn't golf, though he lives in the golfing capital of the United States. I got to ask you this question. So I do a lot of road trips, and I do the road trips that I do take me across vast expanses of nothingness. Being out here in the West, we're surrounded by Nevada, the Arizona area, Utah, where there's a lot of nothing. And I always see these signs that say, land for sale, raw land. And now I've got an expert in raw land on the line with me. I want to talk about this. Can you take us back to how you got started, how you became the Land Geek?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2000, I was a very unhappy investment banker, and I specialized in mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups. And I had a 45-minute commute to work and back on the 51, which
Yes.
And it was, I was micromanaged, and there was politics. I had very little control, and I wouldn't get the Sunday blues anticipating Monday rolling around. I'd get the Friday blues anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. So my firm, we hired this guy, and he's telling me that on the side, he's going to tax deed auctions, and he's buying up raw land for pennies on the dollar, and he's flipping them online, and he's making 300% returns on his investment.
Wow.
And so, Jake, I'm looking at companies all day long, and a great company has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Great company. Your average company's at 10%, and I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So I don't believe him. So we go to New Mexico. I've got like $3,000 saved up for car repairs. And I just do exactly what he says to do. I buy up 10 half-acre parcels at an average price of $300. The next week, I put them up online, and they all sell for an average price of over $1,200. 300%. He was right. So I take that money, and I go to another auction in Arizona, and no one's in the room. I mean, this is 2000. And I buy up all this property for nothing. And the next 6 months, I made over $90,000 on this one auction. So I go to my wife, I'm like, honey, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to invest in land full time. And she's pregnant at the time. She's like, absolutely not. So I said, okay, fine. So I did it as a side hustle for 18 months. And it took 18 months before the land investing income exceeded my investment banking income. And I quit, and I've been doing it full time ever since.
Well, this is a topic that I'm not sure that I really understand, but you've got this land that's going up for auction, maybe because they haven't been paying the taxes on it or nobody's been upkeeping it. Is that how it comes into this auction format?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So there's two types of auctions. There's a tax deed auction, which is sort of cold and callous. It's like, hey, you don't pay your taxes, and we're going to auction off your property, and they deed over the property to the new owner that wins it at auction. And then there's tax lien states, which say, hey, that's okay. You haven't paid your taxes. We're going to just auction off to this investor, and the investor will pay the taxes for you. And then each month that you don't pay off your investor, then they can foreclose, and then they can get the property. So tax lien investing is a whole different strategy. And it's very competitive, especially for housing. Not so much for land, but definitely housing. I mean, they got hedge funds in there and private equity groups. Big money do tax lien investing. But for me, what I do today is I go and I contact the owner directly before it goes to tax deed or tax lien sale.
How do you find that out? You can look in public records and see that it's coming?
Yeah. So my trick is I go to the county treasurer and I get the list of people that owe back taxes. And then I sort that list by use code, vacant land. And then what I'll do is I'll look at the comps and I'll do the Warren Buffett margin of safety of 300%. So I'll divide by 4. So let's say, for example, the comps in this area are $10,000. I'll divide by 4. The most I'll pay for that property is $2,500. So I'll send you that quote unquote top dollar offer. And so Jake, let's say you owe $200 in back taxes on a property you own in Texas. Well, I know that you're advertising to me that you no longer value that property because you haven't paid your taxes, right? And you live in Arizona, so you have no emotional connection to that property. So that's our lowest hanging fruit. They owe back taxes and they live out of state. 3 to 5% of people will accept that offer. We'll go through our due diligence, make sure there's legal access, titles free and clear, no liens or encumbrances.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I didn't know if you had like a swamp there and you're like, oh, great. Yeah, I paid $2,500, but I didn't get anything. So you do your due diligence before it closes, basically.
Correct. And then we close on the property, and then we have a built-in best buyer. Do you know who that is?
No.
The neighbors.
Oh, yeah, because they can expand their property for not very much money.
So if the neighbors pass, we'll go to our buyers list. And if the buyers list passes, we go to a little website you probably never heard of called Craigslist. And then there's another little one called Facebook, buy-sell groups. And so within 30 days, we'll sell this property. And the way that we do it is what I call the best passive income model or the ultimate subscription model, because what we'll do is we'll sell it on owner financing terms. So let's take our example. I buy it from you for $2,500, and I might sell it for $20,000, $2,500 down, and then I'll make it a car payment. Let's say $449 a month at 9% interest.
You do the financing yourself in-house.
Correct. And I actually have software called geekpay.io that automates it. So I'm absurdly automated. The business is 90% automated with software. So essentially, I can do this from anywhere in the world. All I need is my computer and an internet connection. And essentially, I now have my money out without the down payment. I've got this passive income stream coming in every single month, and I don't have to worry about renters, rehabs, renovations, or rodents. And because I'm not dealing with a tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act. And that's why I call it the best passive income model.
Well, and it brings up 3 questions for me because as with everything, this sounds wonderful, but the 3 questions that jump up to me are, I would imagine that there are times where you'll acquire property and 30 days might not be a seller there at that, or a buyer at that point. Do you ever get stuck holding on to the property?
So I've never gotten stuck with a piece of property. There is literally a pig for every barn. So you might have to adjust the pricing. So maybe you have to lower the down payment. Maybe I have to raise the down payment. If people think it's too good to be true, it's only $249 down. Maybe I have to raise it to $1,000 down and $249 a month. So it just depends. But typically we sell these properties on average 30 days or less.
Then my second question then on this is, well, how about, I didn't want to go with this one real quick, but let's do it anyway. Competition. So this was 2000 when you got in there. You've done 5,000 plus transactions over time. And here we are, 2017. How's the competition level for doing what you're doing? Is it tapped out?
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievably low. So if you go to a RIA meeting in Phoenix, right, and there's 100 people at that meeting, you and I would be the only land guys. Everybody's doing house flipping and wholesaling because it's sexy, right? HGTV, the DIY network, flip this house. And so land, nobody thinks of land. And there's billions of acres of land. There's no private equity groups. There's no hedge funds. There's no big money doing it. You, me, a million people could get into this niche. We'll all run out of money before we run out of deal flow. So every single year I've been profitable, including 2008, 2009, 2010. And, my wife even said to me when I started teaching, she's like, well, honey, aren't you going to create your own competition? And I said, well, let's just do the math on this. Like, how much can I actually buy a year? I'm like, there's it's a massive market and there's literally no one doing this. So, and since I've been teaching it, for me, it's been so gratifying to see my students succeed. Scott Todd, he was able to quit his Fortune 300 job in 17 months and 3 days and replace his income. Rachel Mueller, Sean Rickman, they were able to quit their jobs. They're at over $5,000 a month passive income and they're traveling the world. Mike Zano got out of $40,000 of debt just flipping property. Now he's going to make over six figures this year. So it's incredible to see how this moves the needle for people and they don't have to sacrifice their weekends dealing with tenants and, dealing with, some kind of issue with the roof at 3 a.m.
Well, it's a really fascinating topic and concept here. And you've got me standing here at my computer saying, boy, this is really interesting. Obviously something I hadn't thought of, don't know very much about. I wanted to shift back now to you and your business and what you're doing. So how you started out by yourself back in 2001. Now, as we fast forward, how has your team grown? Are you still pretty small or do you have a big group now working?
So I have an acquisition manager running the land investing business. And within that structure, we have several virtual assistants all over the world. So we have a virtual assistant in the Philippines that does our due diligence and our title search. So we pay about $11 for title. We use Craigslist gigs to have people go out and look at our property, take pictures, shoot video, fill out our property checklist. So we have a whole system in place. And with our software, we have automated the entire business flow. So essentially, I work personally about 2 hours a week in Frontier Properties, just managing and looking at reports. How many offers went out? How many deals are pending? How many deals did we close? How many deals did we sell? And as long as the numbers keep going up, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've been pretty happy for a long time, which is really cool because when you look at what you've built here, you've done it through systems and through automation. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. So obviously you've built your own software to do this. How has these systems and these routines contributed to your success and the growth of your company?
Well, I mean, for me, I have no passion for raw land. And without the systems and without the automation, I'd be working all the time. And in the beginning, that's what I did. And I didn't really know another way until I had this mentor kind of help me and see like, hey, Mark, that's not what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur builds something bigger than themselves. They work on the business, not in the business. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, but I'm a control freak. I can't trust anybody. He's like, no. He's like, people want to do a good job. You have to help them, train them. He's like, you'll be amazed at how different life will become once you step out of the business and manage it. And he could have been more right. So for me, I work 3 days a week. I take Mondays and Fridays off. I call my terminal days. My wife hates when I say that, but I think to myself, well, if this is the last day on earth, how do I want to spend my time? And a lot of it is just, deepening relationships with my family and my friends and, doing these very, simple activities that deepen relationships. Like, my wife and I might go out for coffee, might go out for lunch. I'll take the kids to school. I'll pick them up from school. These things, but if I didn't have the systems and the automation, I wouldn't have the time to do the things I really want to do in life.
Yeah. And so I want to ask you about that. You just talked to us about having this team. You have virtual assistants that are doing all different projects and tasks. There's maybe some language or cultural differences and barriers that arise. And I wanted to ask you how you balance it all, how you keep it all straight, because I'm looking at myself. I am a type A control freak type of person. I want to have my hands in everything. And when you say, yeah, we have a virtual assistant in the Philippines who does all our due diligence, and I'm thinking to myself, Mark, I got to tell you, I'm a lawyer by trade and my background is in law. And that's saying to me, boy, I need to be doing this due diligence myself. This is probably the most important part. I don't want a swamp in the middle of nowhere. How do you give up that control? How do you learn and go from being control freak to I'm going to allow other people to use their expertise and do a good job?
It's hard. I wish I could tell you it's easy. You've got to fall and the net will appear, right? So you've got to actually create the system and you've got to test it. And you have to have a rule, right? So I have I think it's a 30-to-1 rule that I use. So let's say, for example, that this task takes me 5 minutes to do. Okay. Well, then I will train somebody for 150 minutes of it.
Yeah. 30 times that amount.
30 times that and take that time to get that 5 minutes off my plate for the rest of my life. So I just try to do that for everything. What can I eliminate? What can I delegate? And what can I systematize so I can grow? Because if I'm doing the due diligence, which makes me no money, by the way, no one's left to handle the strategy. No one's left to work on growing sales or marketing. And so it's the only way to grow is by letting go. And it's really hard to do. It's not like flipping on a switch. And you've got to take each task step by step, take that time and have faith that, you'll grow by getting these non-essential pieces off your plate. So the only thing that makes money in my business are mailing and marketing. That's it. Everything else doesn't make any money. I mean, they're important, but they're not going to make me any money. So do I need to do the due diligence? No. Do I need to send out the offers? No. Right? Do I need to do the county research? Absolutely, I should do the county research, but I should train my acquisition manager on how to do the county research correctly so I can get that off my plate.
And I hear you're an investment banker coming out of you. So you've got this idea of return on investment that you probably did a lot of when you were in your corporate career, and you've translated that into this investment career that you've done. And you basically look at your return on time, and you're saying my return on time is worth 30 times those minutes. So 5-minute activity, if I can train somebody in under 150 minutes in order to do that for me, I just freed up that 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes is going to grow. It's an investment in time that will grow over time. And like you said, sometimes you've got to jump and that net's going to appear. You got to give people an opportunity to surprise you. And I think of it this way when I look at working with virtual assistants or working with other people that are outside of my office here. And I think about myself and I say, if I was hired as a virtual assistant, if I was hired to help you, Mark, what level of expertise would I bring to the table? And I'm very confident in my abilities. I'm very confident in what I would do for you. And I need to have that same trust in the people that we're hiring, that they want to do good, that they're going to work as hard as I would work as far as being, if I was hired to work for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you explain to them the value and that they're creating, and it's bigger than them, they work really, really hard, right? So I never hire somebody, in like every kind of training system, we always start with our mission and why we're doing what we're doing. And so they fully understand that, because if I get the sense that somebody's just playing for pay, then they don't last very long. I want somebody to work with their blood, their sweat, their tears, because they want to improve not just my business, but somebody else's life and do the very best that they can.
And there are great virtual assistants all around the world. You specifically mentioned the Philippines. Mark, we lived in the Philippines last year for 2 months, spent time with the people, incredibly hardworking, committed, dedicated people. So I can see why you have put some trust and reliance in that form of getting some help, a virtual assistant. So I want to talk to you about a time that you struggled. So we've been on the line now for about 20 minutes, and we've talked about everything going up. It's been a rocket ship. Everything's been happy. But you and I both know that not every day is perfect. Even 2008, 2009 were good for you, but not every day is perfect. So I want to take you back to a time that you really struggled, something that you came up against, an obstacle, and how you overcame it.
Okay, so let's go to 2010, right? I mean, I'm making money hand over fist from 2001 to about 2009, right? And I've never gone through a real estate cycle. Nothing is cataclysmic of what happened in 2008. And so Parkinson's law of money takes effect in my life, right? So of course, I buy the big house. I get the big cars. I've got 3 kids, public school, no, 3 private schools. So, and then we got the nanny every day. Well, the nanny doesn't clean the house. So then we have somebody cleaning the house every single day. And of course, my wife doesn't work. So I built up this huge overhead. And then the dip comes in 2010. And about half my income gets slashed. And so that was really, really difficult to kind of, have those tough conversations and start cutting back. But it's so funny because, at the time it was so hard, but now looking back, we feel so proud of it. And instead of going, to Mastro's and bringing in, dinner, we would cook at home. And instead of going out, for some kind of fun activity, we would play charades. And we really kind of got back to what really was important to us in life and those principles. And I think that's carried us through, especially as we've, have grown and we've made more and more money through the years. We sort of stayed true to our core values and learned from that mistake of, hey, money's not going to make us happy. And it really didn't. If anything, it made us more unhappy.
So looking in the rear view, what would you do differently now? I mean, we're going to go through another cycle at some point. It might not be as bad as the '08 through 2010 was in the real estate market, but everything's cyclical. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. Looking back through the rear view, what would you do different, or what are you doing different today to navigate against that?
Yeah, so my wife and I talk about this all the time. Like, what's our priority? What's our values? What really is important to us in life? And how do we create a plan to do that? So, right now the priority is the children, their activities, saving for college. And so when we come across something like, nice and shiny and, should we get that new car? And then we go back to our priorities like, well, if we get the new car, that's going to hurt this priority. So it makes that decision so much easier and so much more clear for us. And I think that was what we learned was that, what's really important to us in life, what's really going to make us happy, what are we going to be really proud of, that if we continue working on that, that's going to, be something that we can look back on and feel proud of. Like my wife and I are going to celebrate our 20th anniversary. We're going to go to Hawaii. And then she said to me, honey, I want to get a anniversary band. And she was looking at a band that was $23,000. And I said, honey, that's like a semester. That's like a semester at college or something. I'm like, which is more important? I'm like, we can do it, but which is more important? She's like, oh, okay, clearly that's not going to make me happy. Be nice, but it's not going to make,
Yeah, and I think these conversations are really important to be having with our spouses or our significant others. And that is, we are, especially if we're married or in a relationship, we need to work as a team in that regard. We need to, both of us, be seeing what direction we're going and have these conversations, these discussions. My wife and I have these conversations all the time. We just got back from a year abroad, and I would say that we had a daily conversation about where we're going and what we're doing. So, Mark, I'm very interested in this. We just talked about the rear view. Now you're looking through the front windshield of your car. You're moving down this road at a pretty good clip. What's on the horizon? What are you excited about moving forward?
Well, I'm really excited about my software startup, geekpay.io. And because not only does it automate the back end of my business, I think it can help so many other people that do any kind of owner financing, like a used car dealer. If you're an orthodontist, you break up your case, you finance your case. They can use this software. It's really good. It's beautiful. There's nothing else on the market like it. And it assures you of getting paid because you can take backup payment systems. So, You can have ACH as your primary, which is a check. And then if the ACH fails, you have a credit card on file. And if the ACH fails, it automatically charges that credit card on file, or vice versa. And you can have these multiple payment accounts and be assured of getting paid. Your borrowers, your customers can log in. They can see their current balance. They make a prepayment at any time. So every headache, every pain point that I went through on the back end of note collection, I've solved for myself. And then I'm really excited to help other people solve their collection issues as well.
Which is the key when it comes to creating a product that solves a problem, is to look at either a problem in the community that you can solve or a problem that you have yourself and work on ways to overcome that. So Mark, you've got this Land Geek title that you have doing over 5,000 transactions. You've got this teaching platform, which we didn't get into very much, but where you help other people learn what to do and go out and do it. Now you've got this software that you're working on. I look at your plate. It seems very full for someone who's working only Tuesday through Thursday terminal hours. I got to ask you, are you putting more attention now towards your software? Are you still pretty heavy in the other stuff that you're doing, or have you shifted personal focus towards this software now?
I would say my time is spent on the software and the marketing of the software because it's launching a startup. But, I'm not ignorant to the fact that that's not going to move the needle at all. Right now, what moves the needle is my land investing business. So I don't take my eye off of that. And when I do work, I work really focused. So I check email twice a day. I don't have social media on my phone. So like I'm really hyper focused because I only have so much time. Right. And so when I do get to, working in the business, I don't really stray from what I'm trying to accomplish, which I think helps because I don't have a lot of time. So Parkinson's law of time benefits me there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And elite achievers, I hope that you paid attention to that last little bit. There's a couple of nuggets in there that Mark talked about that I want to make sure that we are clear with. First is he found his primary business and he built up the systems to make sure that that primary business is operating at high efficiency before he moved on to solving some of these other problems, looking at software and looking at teaching. The second thing that he does is he never takes his eye off that primary driver. So even though he's put those systems in place and even though he feels pretty confident that he knows what's going on and that the business is operating, he still keeps his eye on it on a daily basis or on a weekly basis to make sure that it's still heading in the direction that it needs to. And Mark, I love that. Our time is running down. There's a great section at the end of the podcast where I ask a few rapid fire questions. What I like to say is it gives us a little personal to go with this business discussion. Are you ready to talk learning from leaders?
Jay Carlson, I'm ready.
All right. How about currently on your bedside table or on your Kindle? What are you reading?
So right now I'm reading Happy by Darren Brown.
And how do you like it?
I love it. It talks all about the different philosophies and a lot of stoicism, actually. Stoic philosophy. It's interesting.
It is. Sounds very interesting because that is something I believe that we are out there to try to find our own internal happiness. So I love this idea. Something that I'm going to look up. How about the best movie ever made?
Boy, there's a lot of them. I really love. It was one of those things, like if it's on TV and I'm flipping through, I always have to watch it, is Shawshank Redemption. I don't know why, but I love that movie. I don't know if it's the best movie ever made, but I love that movie.
There's something about it. It's amazing. This has come up a few times on the podcast in past episodes. And I tell you, we were on a bus from Prague down to Český Krumlov, and this came on the bus, and I had to just sit there and stare at it in a different language because I'm so fascinated by the Shawshank Redemption. So very interesting. How about your leadership superpower?
My leadership superpower is caring. I really care. And I think that comes across with everyone that works with me.
Well, you definitely have passion in your voice of what we're talking about.
Yeah. But, if I'm talking to them and I'm not just talking to them about the task, I want to know them and their, what's going on in their life and those types of things as well. What motivates them?
Do you see that as a shift? Now, that's something that's your superpower, something that you naturally do well and is really helping to elevate your game. But do you see that as something that's changing in our culture, in the corporate environment, that people are starting to invest more in people and relationships than before?
I don't know, because I haven't been in a corporate environment since 2001. So I really don't know. I'd hope so. I think it's in the cultural ether, if you will, but I really don't know.
Yeah. Okay. How about a philosophy, mantra, or motivational quote that you hold dear?
I love the quote from Zig Ziglar: "If you'll do for the next 3 to 5 years what other people won't do, you'll be able to do for the rest of your life what other people can't do."
Do what needs to be done now so you can do what you want to do later. I love it. How about if you could leave one leadership trait to the next generation or to your 3 children, what would it be?
Empathy.
Which is very similar to this caring that you talk about. So it's very interesting as you talk about your superpower and what you'd like to leave to the next generation are very similar, empathy and caring. So how about final question, the best business book ever written?
Boy, is that tough. I would say I really love The One Thing by Gary Keller. I think that's a great book. But there's so many great business books. That's a hard one. But I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. I'm like, oh, The One Thing.
As you scan across the bookshelf and you go, wow, there's all these great books. I'd love to be able to talk about them all. You know, the opposite is true though also, Mark. There's a ton of not good books. And so we love to get these recommendations so that we can kind of clue in on what's helping leaders to achieve so that we can kind of weed through all the rest of that gunk that's out there. Mark, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. Before we let you go today, I'd love to get some last bit of advice from you. And then how can we find out more about you, your software, the Land Geek, all that's going on?
Yeah, I'd say the best place to start is thelandgeek.com. And if you're somebody that can take advantage of getting paid on an automated basis, check out geekpay.io, geekpay.io. But the landgeek.com will take you through the journey of all the little geeky goodies I have.
Wonderful. How about last bit of advice?
My last bit of advice would be that you've got to just take action on the things that you want in life and embrace the suck. So if something's new to you, you're not going to be great at it, right? In the beginning, like Jake, when you first started your podcast, I'm sure the first few interviews were not your best, right? But you kept at it. You kept at it. Now you're like this amazing podcaster. But if you didn't embrace the suck in the beginning, you're just like, oh, I'm not good at this. I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. I'm just going to quit. You never would have gotten to the point where you've gotten. So I would say embrace the suck, keep going until you're competent.
And that is my new favorite motivational quote, embrace the suck. I love it. Mark, the check is in the mail. Thank you for saying those kind words about me and my podcast. We love doing it. We loved having you on the show and can't thank you enough. Thanks for being awesome.
Thanks, Jake. We'll have to get together for coffee.
Well, my friends, what did you think about that? Big thanks to Mark Podolsky for coming on the show and talking to us about a topic that I found absolutely fascinating. I got to be honest with you, I turned off the recording and we sat on the mic and just kept talking about this Land Geek and this idea of raw land. It's something that I had never really thought about. Like I said in the intro, I've driven past all this land going everywhere. And I've never really thought about what's happening with it and what's going on. I know we didn't get into too much about what he's doing on that regard because I wanted to focus on his business and how he's operating the systems, something that can be transferable to all of our businesses and all the endeavors that we're working on. But it was very fascinating. I love his enthusiasm, his ability to tell a story. And as we were recording the episode, I could see his picture on my screen, and he is literally on a treadmill while he's holding a microphone in his hand and he's walking along, just having a great time in life. Just love that enthusiasm. Couple of key takeaways that I wanted to mention from this episode. We talked about being a control freak, and I know many of you are like me. We love to have our hands around everything we're doing. We love to kind of, I don't want to say micromanage because it has kind of a negative term, but we love to know everything that's going on. And as we learn to release some of that, to let some of that go, we accelerate our business growth, our business potential. When we realize that there are things that we can do that we're expert at and other things that other people can do that they're expert at, well, then we get that synergy within our business that really accelerates our growth. The other thing that I pulled from this episode, embrace the suck. I said that was probably going to be my new motivational mantra. I love that because the truth of the matter is when you start any new endeavor, you're gonna suck at it. I mean, he was right. My podcast, I recorded it for 3 hours to get the first 30-minute episode because I kept erasing and I was so worried. And it sounds very robotic because I was reading the whole thing. And here I am, 3 years later, I'm loving it. It's one of my most favorite things to do. I never re-record. I just keep going and whatever comes out, comes out. That's the fun of embracing the suck. Of course, everything that we talked about, including the links to everything in the episode, will be on the website, jakeacarlson.com/ML41 for episode 41. And I also wanted to remind you that on the website, you can take the free leadership assessment. Find out what platform of leadership you lead from. Are you a leader that stands up on the stage in front of your group and really gets them inspired? Or are you one of the leaders that sits in the back office and strategically makes movement that is really impacting the organization? Are you a problem solver? Do you lead through solving solutions and finding solutions to problems that just seem unsolvable? Find out for free on the website, jakeacarlson.com. Take the free leadership assessment. Until next week, I want to wish you the best of days, an even better life. Go out there and do something awesome. Thanks for listening to the Modern Leadership Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at Speaker Jake, on Twitter at Jake A. Carlson, and of course the website, jakeacarlson.com. See you there.